This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, to Beardly go where no data has gone before.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that keeps using 400-year-old references and expecting everyone to know what they are for some reason. My name is Gefwin, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Izix.
Hi.
And this week is another one of those ones that, I know I saw, and I didn't remember, and I couldn't tell you what it was from the name until I rewatched it.
Well, I guess the name didn't ring any bells, but this episode actually kind of stuck with me after I watched it years and years ago. And in fact, the hard drive brain prize is kind of why it was inspired by this one. So
this is the Schizoid Man. I'm not sure why.
They liked King Crimson. Maybe a reference to The Prisoner.
Maybe.
Because apparently Patrick McGowan was supposed to be the dude in this one, but I guess he was unavailable or something.
So maybe it's in reference to something that didn't happen.
Yes.
Sounds likely. Sounds just as likely as anything.
Yes. So, it's just standard Star Trek stuff. We'll get a title sort of related to what's going on, and then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then, eventually we'll have a bunch of one-word titles that don't make any sense in Voyager.
Yeah,
so,
happens. I mean, at least we're still out of the original series era of, is there no beauty in the naming of a rose? And then it's just about somebody blowing up a planet or something.
Yeah. Well, that particular episode, anyway. There was a connection that did.
This episode was written by Hans Blemmer, who is best known for writing Night Watch, which I hadn't quite heard of, but there's apparently a thing. He then was a staff writer for Next Generation, and is probably best known for his work on DS9 later on. And
I guess kind of everyone involved in the writing of this one has been, kind of a Star Trek regular of one level or another.
Yeah, and several
some of the guest stars,
and several people in the cast are.
Yeah.
Speaking of guest stars, we don't have a ton this episode. It's a pretty small episode, all things considered. We got W. Morgan Shepard, who's playing Ira Graves. He's a veteran stage and screen actor. Appears several times in Star Trek. He's also a Klingon guard in Undiscovered Country. He appears in Voyager. Known for playing the blank reg on Max Headroom, which I haven't seen, and a Confederate general in both of the Gettysburg movies, Gettysburg and Gods and Generals. That, Confederate propaganda trash.
Yeah, that's awkward.
He was in 2 episodes of Babylon 5 and was uncredited in the Star Trek reboot movie. So he's around. He's all over.
Yes. Doctor Who, the librarians, Wet. It's a video game.
I mean, to clarify, Gettysburg, I thought was a fine movie. It has some problematic elements. Gods and Generals is straight up Confederate propaganda.
So I'll go ahead and just pass that on that one there.
I mean, both aren't great. Both kind of make some weird implications about how the South was righteous and not really fighting for slavery and etc. But they really tipped over with the sequel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could go on about Civil War movies for way too long. That's not what this is about.
Well, maybe there's a Civil War allegory in this one.
Yeah, a Civil War in his heart. Sure.
A civil war between data and not data. Sorts. We'll have a better one later.
We also have Barbara Allen Woods playing Karen Brannon. She's best known for playing Deb on One Tree Hill, another thing I've never seen. She was on the soap opera Eden and was later on the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids TV show.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a thing.
Also starred in the film Circuitry Man, which sounds interesting.
Is it like a response to Short Circuit?
I don't think so. I doubt it. You know what? Let me look at this. I write these scripts way far in advance nowadays. That's kind of a weird Circuitry Man, 1990 American post-apocalyptic science fiction film. It's followed by the sequel Plughead.
Yeah, there's on the picture here, there's a guy with a plug going into his head already.
Let's see.
Circuitry Man.
According to Wikipedia, in a post-apocalyptic future, pollution has killed off the natural world and the population is forced to live underground. A woman attempts to smuggle a suitcase of contraband drug chips from Los Angeles to the underground remains of New York City while eluding both police and gangsters. Along the way, she is aided by romantic biomechanical ponytailed android and pursued by Plughead, a villain with the ability to tap into people's minds.
Well, that's kind of awkward.
Adapted from a student film.
Which, can be either really good or frighteningly terrible.
The Los Angeles Times called it nothing if not derivative.
So maybe we should pass on that one, too.
Maybe. It sounds like some interesting trash. All right, finally, third guest star, we have the first appearance on this show of Susie Platskin, who in this is playing Dr. Selar, who's a Vulcan science officer or medical officer. Mm-hmm. It's a little, I couldn't quite tell.
I believe medical.
Medical
Selar gets measured, mentioned a number of times throughout the series, but I believe this is the only time she actually shows up.
This character was introduced in this episode as possibly a potential love interest for Worf, which would have been very interesting, I think. But then she never shows up again.
Oh, well, that's too bad. But she'll end up with playing a different potential love interest for Worf.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Yeah.
So Plaskin was around a lot. Had a stage career, including on Broadway. She was regular on Love and War, which is a sitcom I haven't heard of either. She will appear multiple times in Star Trek. She will later be the half-Klingon ambassador, Selar, and Lady Q, and an Andorian in Enterprise. She's one of those multiple series people.
Yes. And shows up on other stuff, of course, but, I already kind of mentioned some of that. It also shows up on Johnny Bravo.
Isn't that animated?
It's not important. Yeah, Johnny Bravo. You ever seen that?
I've never seen it. I'm more or less aware of it.
Yeah. Basically, late teen, I guess, is kind of a hunk, but kind of a moron sort of deal.
That guy. Yeah, that Johnny
kind
Bravo
of talks
dude.
Like Elvis. Yeah.
Originally released in 1997. That's why I never saw it. You have no idea how culturally sheltered I was as a child. Was not allowed to watch most television.
Well, at least you got the important stuff. Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Star Trek and PBS were the two things I was allowed to watch growing up in the 90s.
Well, you could have done worse, really. I remember sometimes watching news channels because everything else was terrible. And they were terrible too, just in a different way.
Every now and then my dad would get this weird thing in his head that we had to watch some series that somebody had told him about, so we wound up watching these absolute horrible trash shows like Birds of Prey. Like, why this? Why are we watching this weird thing instead of literally anything else that's on? Like, I wasn't even allowed to watch Buffy. But Birds of Prey, yeah, we have to watch the entire 5-episode run of that.
Oh gosh, it kind of reminds me of some of the random things I've found on streaming services. Like, all right, I'm kind of between series. I'm going to give this a try. Holy smokes, what even is this?
Mm-hmm.
The story makes no sense. The acting's terrible, but the production value is through the roof for some reason. What?
Yeah. I used to love doing that. Back before Netflix would only show you 5 things on repeat, I'd just go into the weird annals of the back rooms of Netflix and find random junk.
Oh, a good friend of mine used to do art streams where she'd be doing some art and then have something kind of like that playing in the, sort of the background for that we could all kind of make fun of as she was working. And it was usually like a kid's movie. And so, we have some really strange exposures there now, thanks to that, including the one where there's the talking dolphins, and one of them really enjoys farting and then smelling it.
That sounds likely. That sounds like children's humor from a certain era.
Particularly what adults of a certain sort thought children's humor was.
Yeah. All right, we may as well get to the thing we're actually supposed to be talking about, I suppose.
All right, let's get to it.
Okay, the Enterprise is on its way to help a Ira Graves, who apparently is humanity's greatest living scientist, who's been living in near complete isolation on his own planet, devoting himself completely to research. And a few hours ago, Graves' assistant sent a distress call requesting medical aid and then shut off all communication.
So I guess this guy was the runner-up the last time the galaxy's greatest scientist died.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I know. They keep on. This keeps happening.
Well, maybe we'll get down the ranks, and eventually we'll end up with Joe, who is really good at studying molds or something like that, and he's like, no, I'm actually not going to die. And they're like, finally, someone who's not on death's door for some reason.
It's weird to be like the world's greatest scientist too, because this guy's obviously into computers or something. It's a little unclear. But, like, he's the world's greatest scientist. And then the dude over here who's the best person ever at studying slime mold is like, excuse me. Just because biology is undervalued.
Yeah. You come to me when you get a weird infection. But, any other time, just like, you're not important. Great.
I've never committed a horrible ethical violation that threatened all of humanity. But sure, greatest scientist over here.
Well, there was another episode there where, it's like, oh, we're looking at these biological samples, and sometimes people just decide to make bioweapons out of these things. Like, maybe it's because you don't appreciate your biological sciences, folks.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Appreciate biologists so they get bored.
Yeah.
So they're en route, and they don't have much to do. So Geordi and Troy visit Data's quarters to look at something that he wants to show them. They're talking about how surprisingly human Data is sometimes before arriving. He's fun like that. I guess it might be relevant to the episode later.
Indeed. I guess it also kind of maybe builds on the notion that maybe Data is more human than he realizes.
Yeah.
Just in general.
So they show up, and Data has a full beard, which is described as a dignified beard, which he can stroke thusly to appear intelligent and intellectual.
Yes. And I just love Marina Sirtis's reaction here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Troy can't stop laughing because I have to leave.
Yeah. Which, that's why I said not Troy, but Marina Sirtis. Mm-hmm. She could stop laughing at the scene, so I had to leave.
Yeah, when you turn breaking character into a character moment.
Yes.
And poor Data's very confused by the whole interaction.
And Geordi's, I'm maintaining character, but, we could sort of talk about this and, not, fall into the absurdity of it and just start giggling.
So back on the bridge, Graves' assistant has sent another signal. It's a broad signal. It's going out to just anybody to ask for help, like not specifically at the Enterprise. They don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah, these scientists, the greatest in the galaxy, have to hide on planets somewhere, and they're bad at setting up communications in case they start dying randomly.
Yeah, because people keep bothering them about how they're doing unethical things.
They should just learn to have some basic ethics, and then they don't have to go hide on a weird planet somewhere.
I'm doing experiments that could destabilize the entire space-time continuum. I need to be completely alone.
Yeah. The other guy had his other set of scientists there, but they blew themselves up, so it doesn't really count.
So then they also pick up another distress call from a transport ship with 2,000 colonists aboard, so they need to go help that. And they need to have Pulaski to go deal with the 2,000 scientists, so they send down the other doctor they have on board, Lieutenant Selar.
Dr. Selar.
And they'll also send down Data and Worf and Troy. And they're going to do a near warp transport, which is very, very dangerous, apparently.
Yes, and we need a little extra drama at this part of the episode.
Yeah, apparently, for some reason. So they drop out of warp for a second, beam down, then warp away. Troy goes, for a minute, I thought I was in that wall. And he goes, yep, you were. You almost died. Good job.
So I hope sometime down the line, when the Enterprise is engaged in some tricky maneuvering through perhaps a dangerous environment with a lot of explosions everywhere, and they need to beam people out, things are a little safer in terms of the beaming procedures.
Yeah, they do this a lot. Yeah. And the beaming procedures are fine. They weren't at warp in that one.
True.
They said specifically it's a warp problem.
Well, we don't quite know where the beam is going, so we're just going to make an educated guess because the warp field's still fluxing or something.
Yeah. For some reason. You can beam from warping spaceship to warping spaceship, but not to planet.
I guess maybe like a relativity frame thingamajig, despite warp kind of, not caring about that.
Yeah,
anyway.
something, breaking physics, etc. I'm sorry, that's like my worst, that's my biggest nitpick with the stupid movie, the reboot movie, where they have Scotty, it's like, figure out how to beam people at warp. And he goes, oh, it never occurred to me to think of space as the thing that was moving. It's like, really? You mean the way warp drive works? Yes. You never thought of that?
Mr. I've developed a transwarp drive, centuries ahead of time, whatever.
It's like, that's quite literally how warp drive functions in Star Trek.
Yeah.
The ship holds still and space moves around it. You never thought of this?
Well, maybe they're just bad at their jobs.
Yes, they're very bad at their jobs in that movie. Anyway, they beam down, and Karen, a very young woman, comes out to greet them. She's nervous because Graves doesn't know they were coming, and he's obviously sync when he enters. He's a really old man. He's like, I hate you, go away. Basically.
Are you like in your 50s? No, I'm like 90,000,
He hates doctors, but he loves women. Yay.
But how does he feel about Vulcans? We might have to do a tiebreaker here.
I don't know. He doesn't like people, but women aren't people. They're women. I don't understand this. I don't know the point of any of this.
I think he's just hitting on Selar, and it's really awkward. And she's like, I'm a Vulcan. What are you doing?
This show still takes every opportunity to go like, misogyny is alive and well in the 23rd century. Good job. 24th. Sorry.
Yes, 24th.
They could have fixed it in the last 100 years, but no.
Well, maybe that's the thing with Graves here. He's supposed to be depicted as someone who's incredibly old. Maybe he was 100 years old at this point.
Could be, yeah.
It's like, I'm just a holdover. It's fine.
He does his basic misogyny stuff. He looks at Data, goes, oh, look, it's a Sung android. Look at that.
Yep. Given that Data is supposed to look like Dr. Soon, it would, make sense that he'd be able to recognize it. And, all that.
Yeah. He claims that he taught Soong everything that he knew, in fact, making him Data's grandfather. Selar's been secretly scanning him during this whole conversation, something he hates, but now she knows that he has Danny something disease, which is always, always, always terminal. So yes, there was indeed absolutely no point.
Yes. Oh, Danny boy, you got the Danny's disease.
I think it's Darnizes, but I'm not going to read just weird sci-fi names. He has terminal disease.
He has a Kalanor that's also mixed with Irmotic syndrome. There we go.
Yeah, he's got can't cure the situs.
Yes.
Graves wants to spend his last days finishing his research and talking to Data. He interrogates Data about a lack of feelings, whistles if I only had a brain, goes like, ha, you're like the Tin Man. Ha, I'm original. Also, I watch 400-year-old movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe there's like a really popular remake of Wizard of Oz at some point that's like the new cultural touchstone.
It could be. Or maybe culture never advanced past 1970, the way it seems to have in this show.
Indeed. Blame the eugenics wars.
Yeah.
They destroyed all cultural impact from that time forward.
So he tells Data that his life must be a living purgatory, neither alive nor dead or able to die, etc. And then Data goes, oh, I have an off switch. That's kind of like dying. He's like, oh, yeah. Really? Off switch, you say?
Yes. Let me guess where that might be.
He also goes, I have a plan to not die myself. I can send my brain into a computer. Thusly.
Wait a moment. Is this Neuromancer?
Yeah, kind of. So in the living room, Troy talks to Karen about Graves' attraction to her. Great. And vice versa. Yeah, sure. This frickin' 15-year-old.
So, Kareen, maybe, I don't know, get off this planet and go somewhere else for a while, because,
This dude raised her all alone with her parents dead, and now they're all lovey at each other or something. This is not the textbook definition of anything.
No, that's not at all. It's not super creepy, and, maybe we should, independent of what he does, we're going to get you off this world and, somewhere where there's people who are not going to be skeevy.
So the Enterprise returns. They say they're prepared to beam Graves aboard and monitor him, but Data comes back and goes, Graves died! We're all heartbroken, etc.
This is the worst thing happened this week.
So Data gets debriefed by Riker and Picard. He doesn't seem himself at all. He has an excuse for not calling the doctor when Graves died, and he seems impatient. They're like, why didn't you get the doctor? That's protocol. He's like, shut up.
Yeah,
That's why.
Everything happens and passes, and every dog has its day, I guess.
He goes to 10 forward to flirt with Kareen. He knows things about her. Ira must have told him, right? He even strokes her hair and does weird, creepy stuff, like Data does,
Yeah. Well, I guess the episode's defense, Kareen doesn't really know Data at all, so maybe, she's interpreting this as normal, but anyone else who happens to be watching the situation is probably going,
Oh, Data, trying out weird stuff.
Yeah.
His new creeper program.
Yeah, we might have to talk to him later about this one.
They have a funeral for Graves, who's in a ridiculous-looking future coffin with a window.
Yes.
In the transporter room.
I just have to wonder what William Morgan Shepherd is thinking as he's just kind of laying there in the with the window and all the acting is happening around him.
How did my life come to this? Why did I agree to do this show? So Data gives a speech about how great Graves was. To know him is to love him, is to know him, is to love him. Picard says, shut up and beam the guy out already.
Yeah, you're going on a little repetitive here, and what the hell was that? That's the worst eulogy ever.
So Picard's starting to get concerned about Data and his weird behavior. Troy thinks that he's just having a weird reaction to a family member dying in his arms that might have, unlocked new ways of being for him.
Oh, just actually kind of a reasonable thing, Data has been constantly evolving over time, and having something like this happen is, kind of unusual. Someone that had a personal connection to him has died, and, that does usually happen, unless there's a phaser involved. But anyway, or a, goo monster.
So Wesley tries to poke fun at Data for this speech that he was giving at the funeral. He calls Wesley a young man and a boy, too young. And Wesley's like, I'm older than you.
Which isn't actually true. Data's a decade older than Wesley, but I guess it kind of, anyway.
Only sort of. I mean, he was asleep for a long time.
Yeah, true.
So Picard brings Kareen to the bridge to look at the view screen. It's better than a window, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I guess they use it as a window most of the time, but
So Data gets visibly jealous and verbally attacks Picard and Riker. Picard sends him to the ready room. He's like, go time out, Data.
Mm-hmm.
He continues to be argumentative. Picard wants him to run a diagnostic. Data runs one himself, but Picard doesn't believe him, thinking he might be lying, something that, is pretty unusual for Data to do.
Indeed. It's like, you've never been dishonest with me before, so this is weird. I'm going to have to keep note of the times you dishonest with me in the future, and because that will be a big red flag in terms of there's some shenanigans going on here.
So he takes Data to Geordi for a full scan, who can't find anything wrong, so Troy decides to look at Data's psychology. She runs a psychiatric exam that they all took at the academy, where sensors measure his response to various images. It's basically the thing from Blade Runner.
Watch this for a while and we'll gauge your reactions. And, some of those images are like, characters in this episode. Others are, things like the Genesis device.
Just random stock photos they had around. I just like to think that it's the same for all of the Academy. So, like, somebody's like, who's this dude?
Why is this Karine Brianon character in this psychological profile device test here? It just felt like the right thing to put in there, but no one knows who this is.
Don't question us. We're Starfleet. This is a test.
By questioning the possibility of this selection here, you are showing that you are unfit for command.
So from all of this, Troy discovers that Data is two distinct personalities. The one that they're seeing is slowly crushing the other one, being Data.
This is unfortunate for Data. Maybe we should get like a diagram that shows like where his neural net nodes are under control for each of these personalities. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, we could show that. You could have a mindscape thing of dealing with the two distinct personalities and watch Data duke it out with the other thing in his head. That could be neat. It won't be, but it could be.
Yeah. But in terms of this episode, though, we got the internal struggle and how it is being expressed to everyone around them.
So Picard thinks he knows what's going on now. He sends Worf to keep an eye on Data while he gets more information from the away team. Selar describes how Data and Graves spent a lot of time together. How Graves is brilliant, but eccentric, egomaniacal, etc., arrogant, chauvinistic, just like Data.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those weirdo scientists that you probably shouldn't leave around near people.
And now because some of the characters have realized, Data goes, I'm not gonna hide anymore, and finds Karine and goes, look, I'm Ira. Haha.
Surprise!
Behold. Graves thinks Data is a disposable robot, a servant to his genius, a tool for immortality, etc. Now he and Karen can be together because he's not a creepy old man anymore. He's a 5-year-old android, which is less creepy, right?
And suddenly we have a little bit of a repeat from a previous episode from the original series in terms of, what is our eventual destiny going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now it's like, oh, I'll make you a robot body too. Don't worry, it'll be fine. So it's like, no, go away. You're not doing that to me.
Yeah, people, not everyone loves robots, Ira. Come on.
Yep, and he doesn't like this, but he also accidentally hurts her with his new android strength.
Yes, because you got to calibrate that sort of thing. Data's really good at that. You're not so much, Ira.
So Picard takes Graves down to engineering. Tells Picard not to approach him. He's not violent. I'm not violent. I'm a scientist. Even though Geordi's knocked out on the ground, and Karine's got a broken hand. No, not violent.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of 30 or 40 instances of self-defense. Like everyone has.
Guy goes, no, that's an accident, and Geordi was an accident. He's like, how many more accidents are going to happen, buddy?
Yeah. So listen to this Picard speech and think about it real hard.
So they keep arguing. Then Graves hits Picard and has another accident.
So Picard, sometimes your speech isn't powerful enough to end the violence, but the violence that can proceed afterwards sometimes can.
Yeah. So Graves is shocked and appalled at his own accidental hurting of people all over, apparently. Pulaski later wakes up Picard, and he runs off to find Data, who's lying in his quarters with Geordi, Karine, and Pulaski. Data wakes up and asks Geordi why he's lying on the ground with all of them standing over him. And they're like, yep, that's Data.
Data, I thought you just laid on the floor anyway. What?
Grain sees a lot of text on the computer. Graves has taken his mind out of Data and into the computer, where it has become a text document.
Well, that means he's for sure dead because, text documents are, not living programs here.
Wait, what if it's a rich text document?
That it has better formatting.
Yeah, it's just information, no consciousness at all. Somehow. What does that even mean? What did he transfer into the computer that became text?
Yeah, it's just like I had this thought once, and this memory is now written out in complete sentences or something like that. Or is it like, here's some, weird hexadecimal sort of nonsense here, and maybe someday someone will figure out a way to translate that back into a rudimentary intelligence to converse with, but, completely useless for the time being.
Yeah, it's like how when you had to save your progress in old games, it would give you a massive gibberish string of numbers and letters.
Mm-hmm.
One day someone will make another positronic network and just copy paste this gibberish text in, and he'll be back.
Yeah, easy peasy, and hopefully that body will be less prone to accidents.
So they drop Kareen off the nearest starbase, and everyone makes fun of Data for not remembering what happened when Graves took him over. Like, you went through a horrifying nightmare scenario.
Mm-hmm. You almost died, and we're going to make up stuff that didn't actually happen.
And Data goes, maybe it's best I don't remember any of this stuff.
Well, maybe Data, this will be a good incentive to, build fortifications within your neural network to try to prevent this sort of thing from happening again.
Yeah, maybe you should have some defenses to keep people from downloading multiple things into your brain.
Yeah.
It does seem to keep happening.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, at least one time, it was, his decision to do it, but we'll get to that a while later.
So that's the Schizoid man. I don't know who's Schizoid.
Data, maybe?
Yeah.
Ira Graves?
Multiple personalities? Yeah.
Well, there's schizophrenic, but schizoid's actually like a little different, right?
Maybe. I'm not entirely sure if Schizoid is something, like it's a song.
21st century schizoid man.
Schizoid personality disorder is an uncommon condition in which people avoid social activities and shy away from interaction with others.
Which, kind of vibes with a recluse scientist guy there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, but only at the beginning. After he goes into Data, he stops doing that.
Well, maybe it cured his mental illness being turned into an android.
Well, it seems to give him a whole host of new mental illnesses.
Well, it fixed one thing, but now I'm like super violent and want everyone to be robots. And I'm creeping on, that girl a little bit more than I was before. So,
we will all be robots. All will be robots. I'll download everyone's brain into robots.
Suddenly, this becomes a plot of a Stellaris playthrough. So, what'd you think?
It was fine. I didn't like the character.
Yeah. Which I guess kind of the point.
It's way too straightforward for what it's doing, I think, is the problem. Because you've got a thoroughly unlikable, possibly even, turning psychotic person who's taken over a likable main character's body.
Indeed.
So you don't actually have to engage with it on any level. It's like, here is bad guy who has done bad thing.
I guess maybe to make it a more interesting episode, one, have him be better at acting at the very least for the earlier parts once he's taken over. And it's sort of a, once, he's sort of been pushed past a certain level, in private, he starts acting out a bit, and then it sort of starts spilling over instead of, you're obviously hitting on her, Picard. No, that was just idiotic.
That was really dumb.
Yeah.
There's basically two things happening in this episode. You've got the transhumanism of people interfacing more and more directly with machines as technology improves, which, interesting, wasn't so much... It was a bit of a thing, but it wasn't so much depicted in this era of TV and sci-fi. Like, it was around, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is nowadays. So basically, there's only one person in the entire series that has any sort of technological interface, and that's Geordi's prosthetic.
Indeed. And so it's a underexplored sort of bit of territory in this era of Star Trek for sure.
And then you also have your bodily autonomy, which is basically what's happening with Data.
Yeah, it's like, you don't matter because your body is what's important, and I'm going to make use of that for my own uses. So move over.
In fact, the argument is this. Let me give me 10 seconds. Let me see if I can figure out the name of this. It's a moral philosophy essay by Judith Jarvis called "The Defense of Abortion." And the basic gist is, if you have someone who has kidney failure and you then, through whatever means, like that's not the important part. Like, this person who has kidney failure winds up being physically attached to another person with functioning kidneys through the bloodstream. And now that person's kidneys are handling this person's blood filtration. So
I think I saw this philosophy video there.
Yeah, it was covered on Philosophy Tube once. So basically, if you disconnect this person, they will die because they don't have functioning kidneys. So your question is, do you now have a moral obligation to keep these people hooked up to each other forever? Or does the person who's doing all of the kidney functioning have the autonomy of their own body to say that they cannot be forced to endure this to keep another person alive?
And those who are pro bodily autonomy are like, no, they can cut them off because they're basically being used without their consent at this point.
Yeah, it's really the only thing that makes any kind of actual sense is to say that you have autonomy over your own body and what's done to it. So you can't be forced to do things with your own body, even if that means keeping someone else alive. Because where's the line between doing that and having, say, forced kidney donation?
Yeah. Or, more than kidney donation. I think I've seen at least one sci-fi plot out there where, every few days when, enough people are in need of various organ transplants, somebody's just killed and harvested to have more people, have their lives continued, because one versus the needs of the many sort of reasoning there, and so you might be perfectly healthy and good to go, but you're going to save so many lives through your death.
Well, let's even say that you don't take it as far as someone has to die. Is it morally right to say you have to do liver donation, which is a pretty simple procedure? Your liver grows back. It doesn't really do much to hurt you. And you could save someone with it. Should you be legally obligated to go through that if you found to be a compatible donor?
And
it would save someone's life and have very little impact on yours.
I also remember the doctor's side of this sort of conundrum. If you were the surgeon who would be doing this on someone who is being compelled to do it against their will, the eventual conclusion is, if you are fully behind the Hippocratic Oath sort of theory of medicine, you'd be doing harm to this one person. Independent of what help it would be giving to somebody else, you are physically damaging them, and that's a no-go.
Yeah, that's a place where we're getting with a lot of modern laws of doctors saying that the way that the laws are written makes it impossible to do good recommended medical care, which is against their thing as a doctor in various situations.
Yeah, so there's a lot of complications and legal loopholes and barriers and all that sort of stuff that kind of complicates all of this. But, so I guess following back on the core idea of you are your person, you have, full sovereignty over your own body here is a good starting place for, I guess, building, not just arguments, but also procedures and legal sort of frameworks around. But not everyone agrees with that, too. We get into trying to phrase this in a way that is, not includes lots of cuss words here, but I guess forced birthers.
And the thing that we've had in an odd way is we, especially in America, other countries might have made their legal systems differently, but as I don't know them offhand. But in America, we never particularly had bodily autonomy as much of a legal argument, which is one of the reasons that a lot of the stuff going on in the U.S. now is becoming such a problem, because abortion rights, as well as an entire host of other things, including gay marriage and a lot of other things that should probably be handled by bodily autonomy, were instead based off of the right to privacy.
Indeed.
We didn't actually have bodily autonomy arguments.
Having the right to privacy is great. But, as the right to privacy is, being eroded, all these other things are as well. And having neither the full right of privacy or bodily autonomy sort of enumerated explicitly has basically led to a large push by those who don't believe in these things to basically have them those rights taken away from folks.
And this goes for a lot of things. Like this bodily autonomy arguments go to abortion, which is the thing that most people are talking about now, even though very seldom framed as a bodily autonomy argument. It goes to trans rights, because people who want to do things to their own body should probably be allowed to. Yep. It even goes so far as how various places are trying to restrict or ban tattoos or other kinds of aesthetic body modification.
It's a symbol of gang membership, that little heart with your lover's name in it, and that's, bad, and we can't have you having gang signs around because that encourages crime, and that offends us.
Or even so far as to say that you can have restricted hairstyles, which is almost exclusively racism.
Yeah. Your hair can't, I forget the exact term for it, but it can't be, a certain type of curliness. It has to be straight, and it has to be, this long and not longer, and, trying to have any weave. No, that's bad too.
Yeah, hair, part of your body.
And as someone who sports glorious long hair, I'm going to keep it.
So bodily autonomy arguments get into a whole host of things. And the argument that they were not having in this episode is essentially that. This person has transferred their mind into another sentient entity, being Data, who we can have and will have debates on whether is a, sentient human. That's part of several things in this show. But basically, your argument is, now that this person is in here and being kept alive, removing him would essentially kill him to save Data, so you're essentially picking between two different people. But in your bodily autonomy arguments, you have the fact that Data has complete right to what happens to his own body and did not consent to his body being used to save this person.
Yeah, so Ira, get out of there.
And they massively simplified it by making this person an asshole to the point where they don't even have to have the discussion in any way.
Mm-hmm.
They never even mention whether or not this person should use this body at all. He never even makes the argument that removing him would kill him.
And I guess, maybe in story, maybe Ira's wanting to avoid having that conversation. But Picard really should have, it's like, also, you're killing Data, so,
Well, the conversation that he's trying to have, that they're trying to have in this episode is basically, I have the right to continue living with a machine. Like, this person is a machine. Machines are made to serve humanity. I am using this machine to extend my own life.
If you have a initial assumption that Data's not a person, you can kind of get away with that sort of logic. It's, remember, garbage in, garbage out, folks.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that this episode maybe helps inform Picard that maybe he should think about this a little bit more, which, what then sets him out to be more prepared about making a better argument later.
We're a few episodes out from deciding whether or not Data's a person.
Yeah, which, you'd think they would have done by this point. But anyway.
Yeah, you'd think so. Like, if you're letting him join your institutions, you should have made something. You should have made a decision on this somewhere.
Yes. But I guess we're still in the era where everyone just can kind of join Starfleet unless you're Romulan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not an argument that's brought up in any particular way, and I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't discuss anything with it in lieu of just having him be like, this guy's a jerk. We're happy to see him dead.
Yeah, well, giving our villains a little bit more sympathy allows us to have more opportunity to consider the ethical and philosophical sort of implications of what's going on. And so, that's one of the reasons, among many, to have more, complicated villains in our stories. And, there are folks that it's like, oh, villains must always be really simple and, easy to identify and object to bad guys and, reject anything else. But then you suddenly don't have room for that sort of nuance and, picking through the actual issues that, maybe we should be thinking about.
And they even have the good grace at the end to have the bad guy decide that he's going to kill himself so that none of the main cast have to deal with it.
Yeah. So, why are we even in this one, guys? I don't know. To get beat up, I guess?
And then it gets into the transhumanism angle, which they don't do a lot in Star Trek. That's more of a cyberpunk genre thing.
Yes.
Which is basically, should you be integrating technology into your body to extend your capabilities beyond what a person would be able to do without technology? I don't understand the argument largely because it intersects so much with the bodily autonomy argument we were having earlier. It's like, if you want to do that, go nuts. At this point in our technological progress, it's probably not the best idea, but, go for it.
Technology kind of sucks at it right now, other than a few specific things.
I find it terrifying that so many of these companies that are run by people who don't know what they're doing are trying to get into brain implants and things.
Yeah, so you just put the computer chip in there, and then the brain just wires it up itself. What?
I mean, it does.
Yeah,
broadly.
But to wire it up how you want it to actually interface, that's a little more tricksy.
Yeah. And we have some truly terrifying stuff going on right now. Like there's a type of implant that they use to do brain stimulation to treat very, very severe, untreatable forms of depression. They put a chip in your brain. It does something that stimulates your brain in a certain way that can drastically treat very, very severe depression. The problem is that your brain adapts to it over time. And I wouldn't tell anybody to not get this treatment. If they've been living with super severe depression and this is something that helps, great, and I'm glad they have something. But to me, that just sounds utterly terrifying to have something that is curing your depression for the amount of time that it works, and then it suddenly stops working, and then there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, your brain really wants to be in this state, so it will adapt to counteract this effect. So it's not really a cure, it's just a stopgap measure for,
Which is what we always have with that kind of thing. The brain just does that. The brain will adapt to anything you throw at it.
But what if I throw another brain at it?
Then it just gets squishy.
Yes. I'm now imagining someone throwing brains at other brains. Anyway.
Then you have then you have this whole thing of people doing surgery on themselves for transhumanist reasons. And like I said, bodily autonomy, I'm for anyone having whatever bodily autonomy they want to have, but still sounds like a fundamentally bad idea.
It was years ago, but I had spotted some interesting stuff about vision implants, but I have no idea how far that's gotten at this point, if anywhere.
Yeah, so. Last I heard, they get you rudimentary eyesight and they can be used to treat certain types of macular degeneration, and I forget what the thing where your eye starts developing too many blood vessels.
Um, yeah, I don't know that one.
They have used it to treat various forms of visual impairment. Yeah, last I heard, it gets you to decent but not very great vision, which is better for people than complete blindness often.
It's like, well, I can kind of see a fuzzy version of the world, and can go places that I'm not familiar with now to a certain degree, but still need assistance for reading and all that sort of jazz. And well, it's better than nothing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. The thing that gets me is how often our technology now breaks, needs to be upgraded. It's all linked to various corporate entities that may or may not continue to support it.
Yeah. So
there's been
I guess
several things where people got brain implants for various reasons, and then the company that was running them just ceased to exist, and now they just have a useless brain implant sitting in there, possibly causing trouble that no one can service.
Yep. Yeah, there really should be some, I guess, general rules put into place where you have like a company-wide sort of insurance that if you go under, some other entity will sort of take over some basic maintenance levels of these things, and might even encourage companies to not try to run each other into the ground by it's like, oh, our insurance might call upon us to service this thing, and well, we think they're ridiculous, but it'd be nice not to do that, so we'll just let this other company that we wanted to end our competition with by any means necessary. We'll let them continue to exist so they can take over that duty. Or keep that duty.
Yeah, so overall,
capitalism.
We're hitting a technological issue with transhumanism, and we're hitting a capitalism issue with transhumanism.
Yeah, as usual.
Which is interesting that this is another one of those damn places where people read Cyberpunk and go, oh, the message I'm taking away from this is that soon we'll have cool arm implants, not all of the anti-capitalist dystopian messaging.
Indeed. I guess, having semi-recently read Neuromancer, it is, interesting how, there's the technology to like link up to the networks and things like that, as well as the technology that someone can have to sabotage that ability to someone. And, there is, and so like, yeah, we can fix that for you for a price.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just can kind of go back and forth here because, it's all, corporate sabotage here. And, in the end of the day, there is still folks, in this particular world of the story there that are basically like, yeah, we might have some weird, crazy implants here, but the things we are actually relying upon is actually fairly simple technology to basically, circumvent a lot of the high-tech stuff here because, it's reliable.
Mm-hmm. You have that messaging in like that really good cyberpunk TV show that they had on Netflix, the cartoon. They have a thing where if you get too much or you live with cybernetic implants for too long, they can affect your mind and you will eventually snap and start going on a killing spree. And the solution that the government has put in place for this is to have really, really heavily armed cops.
Instead of, solving the problem.
Yeah, let's not solve the problem or look at the social situations that lead to this, or even maybe put some reasonable restrictions on the technology side. No, let's just have really, really heavily armed cops.
Yeah. That's also the solution in Shadowrun. It's like, oh yes, we have, we've of course, privatized the police force already. And now they're basically a military upon themselves there. And, there's a lot of people with random cybernetics running around so that's why the police now have, anti-tank weapons to take care of these people. So, yeah.
Yep.
So, that sucks.
But, think about how neat it would be to jump really high.
And or run really fast, or be able to shoot around corners, or be able to climb the side of a building, like you're just walking, or to have blades come out and be like Wolverine, but like cooler because you have more blades.
Yeah. That one seems like it would have limited utility. But
it's like, well, I want to stab someone. I guess I can do that now.
Yeah. This is getting a knife installed in my hand was way more worth it to stab people than owning a knife.
Yes. It is. I do enjoy playing games like Shadowrun, but some of the setups there can be just really ridiculous. But some of the justification in world is because it's cool. Like, yeah, this is not practical at all, but we have a world where everyone's kind of chronically unhappy because it sucks. So you kind of find whatever joy you can. And if your job involves getting into fights a lot, having cool stuff to stab people with, well, then, that's part of your joy. But for everyone else, no, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. I mean, at least that's a more practical explanation than a lot of other things. It's like, why? Because I wanted to shoot blades out of my hands. What? Yes. They're also gold-plated and have flashy lights.
Yes. Meanwhile, the guy over there, has very subtle cybernetics. It's like, yeah, I have a replacement eye so that I could be a top-level sniper with any weapon. So it's like, well, that's actually pretty cool. All right. It's like, not flashy. It just does the job. So Ira Graves, maybe you should just gotten invested into cybernetics, like in the, cyberpunk fashion. So you could slowly replace your body bits by bit. And then whatever's killing you, it's like, oh, I'm just going to scoop whatever that is out. And there we go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm now sort of a cyborg.
Yeah. And then, of course, they just do this as a matter of course and don't talk about it at all by the time you get to Star Trek Picard.
Yeah. It's like, Picard does have an artificial heart at this point, technically, but they don't actually have, it established at all.
Yeah, they haven't talked about it.
A bit later. Yeah. But hypothetically, it's a thing. They haven't thought up yet.
Okay. That's a lot of the thing.
Yes.
So probably time to
about that time
all these car horns go away. And then we can have the galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo! Hey everybody, welcome to the galaxy's favorite game show. The various contestants have been racking up points, though I think some of these extra symbols here. Did somebody download their brain into the score-keeping system happen?
Probably. This is gibberish.
Yeah, that's annoying. But we can still hand out the prizes that are attached to everything else in the meantime. So first off, we got the Hard Drive Brain Prize, of course, which goes to Data for getting his brain taken over. Whoops. What does he win, Gipwin?
Data wins defragmentation, because he probably just does that as a matter of course, but I doubt that whatever random downloaded mind would hold up to that very well. Plus, it would make him think more efficiently.
Indeed. And who knows, maybe with proper defragmented neural network, he'll be able to actually juggle the multiple brains that get downloaded into him throughout the series and beyond.
Of course, probably if you have a neural network that's meant to mimic the way a human brain works, defragmenting it would break the entire thing because our brains run almost entirely on cross-purpose and efficiency.
Whoops. Anyway, our second prize is the Body Snatcher Prize, which goes to Ira Graves for engaging in Grand Theft on Android. What is Ira Graves, Wayne Gepwin?
Some improv classes? It's like, what was your long-term plan here? You aren't even trying to pretend to be Data, even though you're saying so. Like, if you really think that you have a leg to stand on here, you should just show up and go like, yeah, I was able to transfer my consciousness into a robot. That's cool, right?
Yep. If you want to keep it nice and secret, you could be like, well, I'm going to take a few days off, and then, once those days are over, be like, yes, I'm resigning from Starfleet because this a person that I knew that has died is affected me so incredibly much that I'm going to get off on the same planet as Brianna over here. But yeah, that didn't happen. Anyway, the final prize today is the To Die is Logical prize, which goes to Picard for giving a speech to Iridata that will eventually get him to, give up on this whole, writing data, into the forever part of the future and just kind of die, as you do. So for Picard, talking a brain possessing a robot to death, he gets his prize. Anyway, what does he win, Gepwin?
They need whatever. I mean, they probably don't have one because the future's perfect in this series. So she could have some sort of mental health hotline, because since they didn't go into any argument on whether or not this dude deserves to live, the thing that Picard's actually doing is just advocating suicide as a solution to his problems.
Yep. So, maybe had more Troy in this episode. Maybe that could have helped
that could have worked. You know, how she's a psychologist.
Yes. Anyway, that's all the prizes I got to hand out today, Gepwin. Unless, this weird, hex number is actually more prizes to hand out, in which case I don't know what they're supposed to mean. In case that's a thing, we can come back later. Anyway, go ahead and take us away.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and downloading your brain into part of our show that we call the Galaxy's Favorite Game Show. Woo!
Yeah, so that happened.
This is so lazy. The writing in some of these episodes is so lazy. Second season is very
meh. It has less straight up bad episodes, but it's yeah.
Like this next one is like this. So the next episode, this one I remember. It's memorable as an episode. I get it, but like from the name, I can never remember what episode it is.
Like, is like someone been tinkering with the genes of the crew and trying to turn them into super crew, or maybe they've met someone who's been escaped from like a lab or something like that, and they have like weird powers that they have to like figure out and get them to either rein in, or they're going to get themselves killed because it's a Star Trek episode. That kind of thing happens sometimes. Or maybe they've been a bioengineered super soldier that's now been secured in prison for ages and is broken out and is on a bit of a journey to try to find escape. And then once it's clear that he's never going to find escape, he's going to go back to his home planet and be like, we can't shoot you unless you make a move against us. But if we're going to be like here and we're going to point guns at you, we can respond if you try to attack us. Is it like that?
I mean, it could be any of those things. That's the thing. So the next episode is Unnatural Selection, which, it could be any of that stuff. It is, in fact, one of those. It's people have been tinkering with something to probably breed super soldiers, even though they don't say super soldiers. The thing that gets me with this episode and the unnatural selection, okay, right, natural selection, but this is evolution that people are tinkering with, etc., not the main plot of the episode, the weird side plot of the episode that explains what's going on, and also a twist that you get partway through the episode. So why did you name it this? Why didn't you call it Age Before Beauty?
That would be a better title, I think.
You get both in there. Anyway.
Or maybe authorized augments.
Yeah. This is which episode was that? This I'm having memory problems today. Aging virus.
The Deadly Years?
Yeah, that was original series, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, where they had the so this is the remake of the Deadly Years. Except
but with
they
little
don't have radiation.
Yes. Instead they have basically augmented humans, and I thought that was illegal.
Yep.
What are you doing here, guys? Is this a non-Federation facility?
So
What?
yeah, they find a ship where everyone died of old age, even though they were supposed to be in their 20s. They don't try adrenaline, which would be the first thing I try, given this situation. But
Yeah.
wouldn't work anyway. And then Pulaski has to go do heroics to figure out what's going on.
Well, of course, when you mention adrenaline, I do remember that one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where the guys, get stabbed with the adrenaline shot. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I was missing. Adrenaline!
That was such a bad show.
I still loved it. It was terrible at times. But yeah.
So next episode has nothing to do with adrenaline or really evolution. That's fun.
Maybe part of Darwin's early explanation about how natural selection works by looking at unnatural selection and like dog breeding or something.
It does have Pulaski thirsting after a hot shirtless guy. So yeah.
Well, that's good. She deserves love.
But yeah, that's next time.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow. Wasn't this banned like a while ago? You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.